watching Money Talk Viewpoint, and I'm Chantel Leeson. Welcome to our show today. Let's have a special guest for today. This is Judith Pearson. A lot of new money, when they first enter into that realm of wealth, the first thing they do is they spend. And I mean, the spending is extravagant. That does not create anything for you. It does not generate revenue, doesn't generate any ongoing income. And that is one of the biggest issues we have when we're looking at anyone in entertainment and sports, is to help. You almost have to drag the whole family into the early phases of it. Again, I'm going to be reaching out to you. So what should families be thinking about in creating their wealth legacy?
I think they should be figuring out what their, that's a really complicated question, and there's probably better people to answer that one. But I think people should be really thinking about, what do they want to see as their legacy? And I want to go back to the communication and the education, because if the founders have a vision, but they're not communicating it and working with the next generation on what that means, and giving the next generation the ability to be themselves within a productive role, that it falls apart. And I see a lot of that. I see a lot of, I have a situation right now where, two beneficiaries have exactly the same rights, and the distribution ability is pretty flexible, but the trustee is much more engaged with the sibling who wants to build a business versus the sibling who happens to be the primary breadwinner and trying to create legacy there. So it just comes down to the skill sets, having the breadth of advisors that aren't just about the money, but about what do we want to do for longevity, and give the ability for the next gen to have a voice.
Well, let me ask you, who should families include in their team, and why? Why is it important?
So as I was saying before, they need to have independent and professional trustees, or if they have private trust companies, whatever structure they have, outsource all the things that they don't need to do, right? In some cases, investment is really important because that's where they created the wealth. But let's say they didn't have investment advisors, have somebody who's really going to look at the whole investment policy statement and not just what they're running. What do I mean by that? Is even in my own world, my investment advisors in the past would say, well, here's what you need to do in your marketable securities, and real estate is getting, really good. You should be more in real estate. And I'm like, are you kidding? My husband's in real estate. I need to diversify. But they were only looking at what they were managing, and big families have a bigger issue. So investment professionals need to be looking at the entire wealth and making it a big global investment policy statement. Then you have to look at the independent, administration. There's a lot that goes into it, from accounting platforms and dashboards and reporting and IRS, the LLCs we're talking about. Hire the right CPAs, hire the right lawyers that are looking at all these people. If you need family dynamics people, get the family dynamics people involved. So it's all those different pieces. And I really believe, and I'm looking at this mostly from a risk perspective, I think the families should be there to make decisions, to guide the future, to get people involved in the financial education, and leave the rest to the professionals. And I'm not in the investment side. There's a lot of families that are way better than investment professionals. That's fine. But I'm just saying, the places where you can have real risk and real discussions, outsource what you can, or at least get the right advisors on board. And I'm going to make one little plug for the property casualty insurance person. It's so funny when I'm in conferences and I say I'm in the insurance business, everybody says life insurance. They forget that the property casualty person actually has insight into risk management. And we're not here to be product salespeople either. We're here to, when people are saying, I'm thinking about this structure versus this structure, or this advisor versus that advisor, we can be in there saying, you need to be intentional. And here's some risk characteristics that you might see with any choice. And then when you make the choice intentionally, then we'll put together the policies that make sense. But we can actually add some insight.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You kind of jumped on my question. I was going to ask what are the risks and how can you identify and mitigate those risks? And you kind of just want to add to that now that I've asked it, or just you pretty much.
I think it's just really involve them and ask the questions. Just treat your property casualty person like any other advisor, because we all are a team. And if you feel like somebody's just trying to sell you something, it's not the right advisor.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. In fact, I think that's why all of us who have been in the retail side leave it. We really, I think that my whole focus is that I don't want to shove product to get a commission. I do want to be paid. Now, I'm not trying to say I don't want to be paid, but to me, the quality of advice and service I provide for someone is so important because it truly impacts the long-term of what they're going to receive for their families. I look at the families, I'm going to compare it to the royal families. The reason they exist today is because they were able to transfer that wealth for hundreds of generations. So today you have a royal family because that money and the assets kept going on. Anyway, go ahead.
I think the other piece of that is, as you brought that up, is as we started saying earlier, this industry is in its infancy, as far as I can tell, because the enormous amount of wealth, all the things we've been talking about. And I think in any situation, if you have the right advisors, we can all ask the right questions. If anybody says they have the answers, they don't belong there, right?
Yes,
but
exactly.
If we're together asking the right questions, we can solve it. And we need to be inquisitive and following the laws and following what's going on so that we can be nimble enough to protect all of it.
Well, I'm gonna follow up with you because I'm part of a family office network where I'm getting more education on how to become a real quality family office, because it's not just a hodgepodge of people. It really is. It's a legal team that you put together for the sake of the client. Anything you want to add to that before we wrap up for today?
No, just that I really appreciate what you're doing. I find what you're doing fascinating. I really want to emphasize, because it sounds like a lot of your work is with the entertainment industry, and I am seeing such a newfound sophistication that I'm so impressed with what you guys are all doing. I can't say it enough. I was really kind of taken aback by the first panel I saw, and it's really exciting.
Well, it's more than entertainment. It is a lot of small businesses too. But what I look at is that in the beginning, you see nothing, particularly in the business entity. They may be struggling, but then all of a sudden you watch a pattern. It's like watching a stock pattern, and the upshot is so fast and so dynamic until they don't have someone in place. They wind up in a bad position because they get bad advisors. People that don't know how to give high quality advice, and they're sold a bunch of product. That's what happened to a lot of people in the past, and they wound up going bankrupt. I don't want to bring up names, but that's what happened to Scottie Pippen, bad investments, bad advisors. But I think he's back on the right track now. But so it's important to be around the right people to get the right type of advice. So we're about wrapping up at our point here, but I want you to bring anything else you want to before we wrap up here today.
No, I think we've covered everything. Usually you have to have a closing argument, but I guess if you want to just who I am, I have a couple of silos. I have my own underwriting facility for independent and professional trustees, as well as certain private trust companies. And what that means is I make the underwriting decisions, we issue the policies, and is backed by Lloyd's of London. And then on an open market basis, we work with anybody serving as trustee, trust companies, and family offices. So that's what I do to make money on my day job.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to take your contact information. It'll be at the front of this video. It'll be a full video and a podcast. And for people to reach out to you, but I'm going to reach back out to you myself personally.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Chantel. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for joining.